Hey YouTube, Bullhorn Betty here this lovely Thursday. Hello to all. Many of you guys tuned in and watched the collaboration I did with Miss Cher, Listen to Voices Behind the Wall, and we went over a bunch of little topics about an interview that she had given Don Wells, the father of SummerWells, which is a missing. She was 5 years old at the time. She is now 6. When she went missing on June 15th, 2021, from Hawkins County in the Rogersville, Tennessee area of Tennessee. Since then, there's been a lot of speculation, especially related to the parents. The parents have come under a major and massive scrutiny about their involvement in their own daughter's disappearance. And so through this conversation that Cher had with Don, and it was paneled with Cher, Mr. Cher, and Chasing Truth. And one of the parts that we stopped at in this interview that I had an opportunity to have with Cher just the other day, one of those topics was when Don was describing what he would like to see happen to whomever is responsible for the disappearance of SummerWells. Listen to this clip.
Or what? And your response was you weren't sure if you would want to put someone in prison because you know that life. And I understand your response because we talk, so you know my past and everything. So I understood your response. But also, it's in your church teachings because God always said you forgive, right? So is that kind of why you think you would be a little more forgiving? Is it because of that's your religion, your beliefs, that's what you feel in your heart? Or can you kind of just clarify that a little bit for people who are freaking out about that?
Yeah, of course, the first thing that comes to your mind, if somebody hurts my kid or your kid or anybody's kid, is I'm going to hurt them. That's the first thing that's going to run through any person's mind. But if you allow the system to put them in prison, there's no worse place. Death is better than prison. Okay, you have to be in prison or have been there to understand that death is better than prison. So prison's way worse. And not only that, once you get in prison, them guys in there are going to be like, you know what, that could have been my kid, and they're going to act accordingly.
So I found it quite odd that Don is more concerned about, death is better than prison. Prison is not some place for someone to be, especially with child crimes, crimes against children. So it was very concerning for me because he's more concerned about the treatment. When Cher couched her question, it seemed like it was more of a religious base type of forgiveness. But whenever you listen to how he's explaining it, it doesn't seem like religion is associated with his decision at all, in my opinion. It seems to me that he's more concerned about the well-being of whomever is responsible for the disappearance of SummerWells than he actually is that his daughter's missing. And then there's one last thing, and then I'm going to open it up to questions. And I want people to hear this because I think it's important that people hear the statement, because this has always bothered me. This has really, really always bothered me. And this is related to when you ask Don, what do you think should happen to the person responsible for Summer? And I've always found his response odd. I want people to listen, and then I'm going to ask you about your opinion, and I'm going to give mine on this. What's up?
Her or worse. You were asked what should happen to that person should they be found or what. And your response was you weren't sure if you would want to put someone in prison because you know that life. And I understand your response because we talk, so you know my past and everything. So I understood your response. But also, it's in your church teachings because God always said you forgive, right? So is that kind of why you think you would be a little more forgiving? Is it because of that's your religion, your beliefs, that's what you feel in your heart? Or can you kind of just clarify that a little bit for people who are freaking out about that?
And before we go, I probably will stop this when he starts having his response because there's something that just cuts to my core. Just stay, everybody stay put.
Yeah, of course, the first thing that comes to your mind, if somebody hurts my kid or your kid or anybody's kid, is I'm going to hurt them. That's the first thing that's going to run through any person's mind. But if you allow the system to put them in prison, there's no worse place. Death is better than prison. That
is the problem I have, was that statement. Death is worse than prison. If somebody injured my child, we heard him talk, I don't know if it was on somebody's panel or was WJHL, him stone-faced talking about what he believes may have happened to his own daughter, and he describes in detail, which almost turned my stomach, because if I was a parent and I was describing that, I don't know how I could not just want to break down. And he said it so stone cold, so matter of fact that it bothers me. And then you hear this come out of his mouth about how death is worse than prison. And I'm thinking, that's the point.
Mm-hmm.
That's the point. And is he referring to his experience in prison as to why he does not want to go back? Because I'm starting to feel like he's talking about himself here. So let me finish playing this clip and I'm going to get your thought.
Okay. You have to be in prison or have been there to understand that death is better than prison. So prison's way worse. And not only that, once you get in prison, them guys in there are going to be like, you know what? That could have been my kid. And they're going to act accordingly.
So what do you think about that statement?
Oh, so many things. So at first I think, or did think, that, okay, he doesn't want Candace in prison. He knows what prison is like. He doesn't want his wife in there. So I think, I was thinking then, I remember thinking, telling Mark, like, I just really felt he was talking about Candace, because he would always tell me up and down, I'm institutionalized and blah, blah, blah. Okay, well, if that's the case, then maybe you would worry about your wife going to prison, because she'd be going to prison for harming children, and they would act accordingly. She'd get her ass handed to her. But when he says that, lifting back again.
I didn't even think about Candace. Great perspective. Keep going.
Yeah, but then when I hear that back right now, when you play it, I'm like, damn, is he talking about himself? Because before, when he went to prison all around the states, he was actually, in my opinion, he does well in prison. He is respected in prison, except for he's never been to prison for violating children. So he would no longer go to prison and be respected. Or because he'd tell me, oh, I was in this group. Like, he did well. I think he'd be okay in going to prison, but not for a child crime. So I wonder now, both, is he talking about himself? But I remember thinking for the longest time he's talking about Candace, because Candace has had like 90 days jail time twice, I think, but she got the time stayed. I think she maybe did 24 hours each time in a jail cell, and had time stayed, I believe. So would he want Candace? Because he seems to always protect that wife of his. Was he thinking about Candace going to jail, and prison would be better than that? Like, I always got the vibe at first that he was talking about Candace. The way he was talking about it, I felt like it was a girl. He was more concerned about a girl in prison wouldn't be able to handle it like, he could. So he went to Candace. But now I question, is he talking about himself? Because he's been to prison, but he has not been to prison for harming children. And if they knew that, oh yeah, inmates act accordingly.
Yeah.
My dad was pissed when he found out what he did to what he confessed to doing to his sisters, and that I put him on the phone Was Don before telling him that?
Yeah. What his daughter's going through. At some point, he had a very descriptive, he spoke very descriptively when in one of the interviews. I have not been able to find it, and I apologize, otherwise I would put it into the segment, where he describes what he believes is happening to his own daughter. And he talks about it very matter of fact, very to the point, no emotion, no pain. It doesn't appear that it affected him in any way when he was talking about this. It seemed to me he was almost saying it to affect the audience that was hearing it, as opposed to him believing it. And that's just, again, just my opinion on that statement that he had made. Listen to the statement of Cher, because her and I actually, while we were listening to this, had a couple different opinions on what he was really saying. When he was talking about what he would like to happen or see happen to the person that could be responsible for for Summer's disappearance. So again, I'm just going through all this stuff, trying to make heads or tails of it. Do you think Don Wells was talking about himself or his wife, a stranger, or was he talking about both him and his wife? I'm curious about your thoughts on this topic because, again, it was quite odd. Many people that have missing children, if anybody is responsible for harming a hair on the head of their child, they almost want retribution, vengeance. And people that believe in God, they realize the power of forgiveness, and they realize it's more important to forgive for themselves than it is for the person that they're forgiving. So again, it comes back to, how do you feel? Do you think Don's talking about himself? Because when I'm reading this and I'm listening to this and I'm reviewing these statements that he's made consistently throughout the time that Summer has been gone, it seems like he is more concerned about the treatment of whomever may be responsible for harming his child, as opposed to being concerned about who harmed his child, or that his child was harmed. So again, let me know your thoughts, your comments. I'm interested in any and all feedback. If you have information related to this, please forward it over to bullhornbetty@gmail.com, bullhornbetty@gmail.com. Again, I just, I personally, from my viewpoint, believe that they're concerned about their own hide, that they're not referring to another person, that he may, in fact, if we, went with Cher's opinion, she thought he was talking about Candace. I personally thought he was talking about him. I'm wondering if he's talking about both. Anyways, take care, guys. Happy Thursday. We're sliding into the weekend. I hope you have an amazing day, and God bless each and every one of you.